Both Newberg School Board Chair Dave Brown and Vice Chair Brian Shannon have a narrow lead in their favor in the recall election. Despite that, Chair Dave Brown tells me that he's disappointed in the division that he's seeing in his community and would at the very least consider making a change to the flag ban that helped spark this recall to begin with.
I just want to see us get past the recalls and get back to education.
Board Chair Dave Brown and Vice Chair Brian Shannon have a narrow lead to keep their seats. They voted in favor of a ban on Black Lives Matter and pride flags, which they called quasi-political. Speaking to us on Wednesday, Board Chair Dave Brown said, regardless of result, it's time to move on.
No matter what, we've got to stop that. It has to stop. We get past the recall. We can't just keep this whole fight going because we're leaving the kids in the dust.
Am I surprised? Not completely. Am I disappointed? Yes.
Zachary Goff led the petition effort against Dave Brown and Brian Shannon. He said despite the apparent loss, they're not planning any additional recall efforts. Instead, he's looking towards the looming lawsuits by the local teachers union and the ACLU over the ban.
This vote is probably their easiest hurdle when it comes to these policies. In the next couple months, we're going to see what happens in these lawsuits. And that really could be what shapes these policies moving forward.
The turnout has been massive, roughly a 56% voter turnout for the recall election in the district. To give some perspective, that's triple the voter turnout of the Newberg School Board election back in 2019.
No matter where it ends up, it really shows that, 49% of this town needs to be represented just as much as the 51.
What role do you play in helping bridge that gap if these election results hold up?
Those conversations are going to have to happen, and they're going to be tough conversations. And it'll just see where everybody's character is when, you don't get your way. Can you still sit down at the table and talk?
Brown said part of his vision involves adding more counseling resources in the district to help students feel more supported. And while he's ready to move on, there may be more discussions on whether the flag ban needs to change.
If we do allow that, then are we going to just open it up? Because are you going to, go for this flag? And I think for some of us, we look at it from a pretty simple angle, and I don't think it's really difficult. But for some people, it's a lot broader and it's a lot deeper.
But in your mind, it's open to discussion.
Yeah, I'm going to talk to. We've got to get past all this. This isn't. Again, this cannot be about yes on the recall, no on the recall. This can't be about. The school board. This has to be what's best for our community. So we're going to have to sit down and have these discussions for sure.
Vice Chair Brian Shannon didn't return our request for comment. Neither did Brandy Penner, another member of the board who's in support of the recall effort. The Yamhill County Clerk says they're still counting up ballots that have been mailed in, and it could be until February until we have the final results of this recall election.
Voter turnout in Yamhill County is at 55.46% as of right now. That's almost triple the number of people that came out to vote for the 2019 school board election. Ballots being dropped off all day long. This historic election comes after the Newberg Board of Education voted to ban Black Lives Matter and pride flags, among others, from being displayed in classrooms. Opinions are strong on both sides.
I voted no on the recall.
I voted yes to recall Dave Brown.
David Hetty and Michael Ely are both Newberg residents. Hetty says he wants David Brown and Brian Shannon off the school board. He thinks they cause too much division.
A poor use of time and funds. And so it seemed like so much was wrapped up into this decision to ban flags, symbols of inclusivity and equity, the Black Lives Matters and the LGBTQ or pride flags. And so just all of the time and resources put into that.
Michael Ely thinks Brown and Shannon are doing a good job and that those flags don't belong in a classroom.
We're about freedom and liberty and and that means certain students and even the teachers, if they want to be active, just be active not on the campus.
Either way, voters say this is an important issue.
That is amazing. When I first read about this, at the time they were saying, maybe 35-40%. The fact that it's above 50 means that, oh my goodness, this became a bigger issue than I anticipated.
I hope that, either way, however the vote does come out, that maybe we can move forward and just get past this as a community.
As for final results, we may have to wait a while.
We won't know what's coming through the mail until a week from now, because Oregon's new law says if it's postmarked by today and it gets to us through the mail by 7 days, those can still be counted.
I do.
Is this a gun violence team or a gang team?
Gun violence team. We're focused on gun violence throughout the city.
There are people who are going to accuse us of being a gang team. There's going to be people who say, bring the gang-focused team back. What would you say to both of those sides?
I would say we've done this work before, whether with the gang enforcement team, with the gun violence reduction team. Those were good officers doing good work, and that work proved unsustainable. We're always looking for ways where we can do this work in a manner that's, one, consistent with what the community expects, but also effective at reducing gun violence and will work. So I think there might always be those criticisms out there, but we have to remain flexible and try to come at this work in a data-driven way and be as effective as possible.
Chief, the gun violence reduction team had investigative arm, patrol law, that seems to really all work together. Perception is that it's kind of put back together to the homicide detectives, the CSP, all those units work together to address gun violence.
Yeah, well, ECST has been formulated for a while, but now FIT and ECST will be together, housed under our Strategic Resources Division. So they'll be able to work more closely. And I think, for us, it's like what makes the most sense to have this concerted effort where we have officers out on the street in uniform, proactive with relationships, and then an investigative arm that has access to those officers so we can go out and do investigations quickly and effectively. And I think, we've put a lot of resources to gun violence in the past year and a half, resources that we've taken from other things in the city as well. So we'll have a focus on gun violence, but we also, from my standpoint, have to be mindful of the other things going on in the city that require resources as well.
Do you think there's more that can or should do on gun violence, or do you feel like this is it?
I feel like this is the logical next step. There might be more, and we may learn as we go, some additional things. I think there's probably a lot of things a lot of people can do around gun violence. This is something that's a heavy lift, and we're not going to solve it ourselves. We need our partners, the DA's office, Office of Violence Prevention, community partners, and a whole host of others to help.
What's going to be the biggest challenge?
The biggest challenge? I think the biggest challenge is probably just doing this work safely. I think that to me is always kind of the forefront and the foremost thing. We have a lot of shootings, a lot of people have guns, and we want to approach this work in a safe manner so everyone goes home at night, community members and police officers.
What can this team do that a patrol officer can't?
Well, one, a patrol officer is really, assigned a district. They're assigned to answer 911 calls for service. This team will be focused on gun violence, going to scenes where shooting has occurred. They may help out on calls. If it's a busy night and they're free, they could help out on some calls, but they're going to be focused solely. Their number one goal is going to be gun violence.
You mentioned the critical component of community oversight. What else? What are the other differences between this team and GVRT in your opinion?
I think with this team, we have a new approach. I think having the FIT COG, the Community Oversight Group, allows us to have that community voice at the table. And it's incumbent on us to listen to that voice. When we meet with them, when we talk with them, and they say, hey, we think you should be doing this differently or that differently, we need to listen. And we need to do the work in a way that the community supports too. And I think that's kind of what was maybe missing in our earlier efforts.
Do like one more.
Right.
What is your message to the people who live in these neighborhoods that are most impacted by the violence? What do you want them to hear from the chief?
I think my message to them would be, one, we care. We're moving resources. We're constantly, within our constraints, trying to do everything we can to bring resources to this issue. There's a lot of issues in this city. Gun violence has risen to the top, but there are others too that affect a lot of people, particularly those in neighborhoods. But having a safe city where there isn't 90 homicides a year is important to me as the chief and important to the people standing behind me, which is why they're here doing this work. So I want everyone in the city to know that we're serious about gun violence, and we're going to do the things we can with the resources we have to try to reduce it.